So, with the after the credits scene in episode 12 of Red Ranger in Another World, it's gonna have collectively everyone say season 2 when. I think if you remove the after the credits scene, most of us probably could have walked to this episode and been like, okay, that was good. You know, if they never give us a season 2, that sucks, but decent stopping point. Not kind of like at least resolve the main things at hand. But with what they're seemingly bringing up, now, it could be a misdirect, but am I the only one who thinks the girl in question, who is, I guess, the master, is probably the Silver Ranger that Red got killed? Now, granted, did Red personally stab her? No. But she did have future vision saying, I can't join the Kizuna 5 because if I do, I'll die. And because of Red's, like, you know, don't worry, we got you attitude, she stuck with him, and yeah, she died. Had he never convinced her to join the Kizuna 5, she probably would be alive right now. And that guilt's gotta weigh down on a guy, which as seen by pretty much fueled the Kizuna Black form. But they're seemingly implying that when she died, she went to this world too. Which, I mean, given the brief flashback we had like around episode 6, it was like in the midway point. There's already speculation she might be in this world as a villain, but I think this kind of like seals the deal. And then you also add in his Kizuna friends, who, the guy who approaches at the end, is that his bro? I can't remember off the top of my head, I think so. But either way, we now have confirmation that every time he summons the bots, you know, to make up his Megazord, they disappear from that world. So like they're already hinting at them trying to find him. Long lost love on the enemy side. Current bonds in question. There's a lot to explore in a season 2, and to be honest, I mean, a lot darker of a ending than I was expecting, but you know, with that hint at hope that I think keeps you wanting to watch the heroes and see if they succeed, right? Of course, though, if you want to see my full thoughts on these episodes, support my work, we do got the Patreon, full uncut live reactions over there exclusively. So I would go as far to say this was the best episode of this show. Now, for me personally, I enjoy the first half of the show more than the second half. And to be honest, I think the most surprising thing about this episode is it's the first time that they focused on his OG squad, like with flashbacks, that I wasn't bored out of my mind. I get what they are going for in previous episodes, it never clicked with me. I just didn't find it entertaining. This was the first episode that I was like, okay, I legitimately find it interesting. I think one of the most interesting thing about the whole Rangers dynamic is the fact that usually when a character goes into a new form and, you know, they're being consumed by hate, it's because of their emotions or like something going haywire. Like it would make sense that, oh, you know, their transformer bracelet thing, it has a bit of a haywire, and then because it feeds on negative emotions, it created this form. No, it's an actual device that was purposely designed that you can put in this plate and go into Kizuna Black whenever you want. It's basically like a last resort, that if your back's against a wall, there's no other option, slap that bad boy in, and you'll go into basically the dark side. We see, though, it's dangerous. If there isn't people there to pull it off, you would probably die by being consumed by hate. The most shocking thing, though, was that I truly believed that the one who would pull it off would be Ydra. You know, because they're already building in that little romance thing going on there, bond merging and the like. So the fact that it was actually Loji who pulled it off is incredibly surprising to me. But honestly, I think makes it more rewarding because of how much they butted heads. It kind of makes it feel like their rivalry is growing into more of a kind of like a bromance, I guess, if anything. And I really appreciate that he was the one who did it. Because I figured what they would build into is they all would be trying to do it, it wouldn't work. She would get close, hold Red, and then she'd, like, you know, pick it off or something. But no, it was actually Loji, which is incredibly surprising. They absolutely delivered on the action of a Kizuna Black fight. The first thing he basically does is he summons a bunch of missiles and just whips them in their face. You can't tell me with a straight face it's not incredibly badass to blow the enemy's head off. Now, granted, he survives it, but you can't deny the fact that he was, like, at every step of the way, like, they couldn't do shit against him. It was so cool. And I like that rather than it just being like, the more you hurt him, the stronger he got. No, the angrier he got, the more you couldn't touch him. He was literally the definition of can't touch this. That, oh, you got an attack on me? Cocoon, protected. Oh, you think you hit me? I'm Sonic the Hedgehog. I jumped over here. He was literally untouchable. And to be honest, them retreating was probably the only thing you could do. When your lackey minion here gets his head blown off, it's probably time to leave. Is it infuriating as the viewer or a character because they got away? Of course. But the character designs and I think their personalities are so strong, I would prefer them to last into a season 2 than end them early and then just continuously try to one-up the characters. Now, granted, after the credits, they do tease a bunch of characters, but I just think it makes more sense to go about it this way. They also seemingly confirm that our new girl is actually going to be sticking around in this new Kizuna 5 formation. I wasn't sure if she would. I was actually betting more that she would stay behind, but I guess if they're implying that she will stick with them, it means this prince who kind of went off the deep end probably will rule in her stead, is what I'm assuming they're building into. But either way, surprisingly good show. Like, it came out swinging with the first couple of episodes, something that you just don't see every day in this isekai department. And while I definitely had my issues with it at times, and I thought some things dragged or some things just weren't as interesting as others, as a whole package, I mean, it leaves me incredibly satisfied with what they delivered as a season 1 story, especially with Red's character and how it kind of came full circle by the end there. But with what they're teasing with season 2, both with his OG squad and seemingly, potentially anyway, Silver being here but on the enemy side, there's some interesting reunions, some interesting twists and turns, and honestly, it'd be incredibly interesting if they did commit to the Silver bit, how Ydra would respond to essentially Red's first love, because I don't think it's just there to be bait. I think Red and her are actually legitimately building something there chemistry-wise, especially if they're indicating that in the OG Kizuna 5 squad, there already was romance that was, kind of canon. They felt for each other. It's pretty damn interesting to say the least, but yeah. A lot darker than I was expecting, a lot better than I was expecting, but, in general, I leave satisfied. It's not what I expected, and I think, to be honest, my favorite part of this entire episode is the fact that Loji was the character who saved him in the end. Now, it was a team effort, granted, but at the end of the day, if you would have pointed a gun to most people's heads saying who will pull off the bond plate to put him back to normal, you would assume Ydra, because she's the love interest. She's the one who is arguably the closest with Red, so for him to be the one, like, strength-wise, yes, it makes sense, but, I'm so used to shows like throwing the character away and then the girl comes up and, comforts him. Like, that's usually what happens. Like, his bond plate's very similar to Naofumi when he goes into Wrath Shield or whatever it was from Shield Hero, and yeah, it's Raftalia who's the one who's going to comfort him, to bring him back, right? I thought it was going to be a very similar situation, but I think what they delivered was much more engaging, if I'm being honest. Of course, let me know what you're thinking down below. This was the final episode. Do you want to see a season 2, or are you good with it just ending here? Let me know. Leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new around here, of course ring that bell, and like I mentioned, we got those full live reactions over on Patreon, and hey, while you're over there, I'll also give you a video shout out. Alright, so today we got Stephen Thomas, MJ Minion, Brian, Matthew, and we also have Azov Montgomery, so I appreciate the support, everyone. Please take care, and if you got to take one lesson from this show, make it this one. Always bond merge with protection. Have a good one.